Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lakeview Baptist Church, and welcome to this spring concert for the East Alabama Community Band. My name is Aaron Wine. I'm one of the pastors here at Lakeview. I also happen to be the conductor's brother. What really would have been worthy of applause is the conductor is my brother. There it is. Well, again, we want to welcome you to Lakeview Baptist Church. It's our honor to be able to host the East Alabama Community Band and enjoy just some good music and some good fellowship tonight. We want to begin by just having a word of prayer, and then I'll hand it off to the actual conductor. All right, so let me pray. God in heaven, we love you, and we are thankful that we get to gather together tonight and enjoy one of the beauties of your creation, the gift of music. Lord, you didn't have to give us this wonderful gift, but you did out of great abundance and kindness. And so tonight, we get to enjoy these sweet sounds that make us mindful that not all in this world is completely broken. But Lord, you, the one who created all things, created things very good and for your glory and for our enjoyment. And so Lord, now we pray that tonight would be just that, an exercise in doing something wonderful and beautiful that would bring you great honor and glory and lead to great joy among your people. We love you. We thank you for the opportunities that we have to come together and enjoy things like this. We know that ultimately those gifts and graces were paid for by none other than your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. And it's in his name that we ask and pray all these things. Amen. Thank you.
Would you please join us in standing for the playing of the national anthem? Alrighty, thank you so much for being here this evening. We appreciate your attendance. This group that you see in front of you is indeed the East Alabama Community Band, a group made up of regular community members from all walks of life, as you can see on your program. My favorite part of compiling the program for these concerts is listing all of the wonderful occupations of our musicians, because when you hear them, you think, those are pros, and they are, but they're also pros with day jobs. And that's what we like. We enjoy putting together music each and every week and putting together these concerts. We're so fortunate to be here at Lakeview, a wonderful venue for this type of concert. Thank you again for joining us this evening for a concert of sacred inspired works of a whole lot of different styles. The piece that you just heard was a piece called Fanfare and Hymn, A Mighty Fortress, which is obviously based on A Mighty Fortress Is Our God, a very, very famous Protestant hymn by the composer and theologian Martin Luther. Our next tune is a very different sounding piece. It is probably the one that looks the most familiar to most on the program, and that is an arrangement of Amazing Grace. This arrangement was done by a good friend of mine, Mr. Tyler Arcari, who's a composer based in Florida, but he's originally from Alabama. Was actually a band director in this area for several years before moving to Florida to work for a music publishing company. And he composed this arrangement of Amazing Grace in honor of a mutual friend of ours, a gentleman who was in the band with us in college, who tragically passed away in a really unexpected car accident. He was a band director, and he was on his way to work with his students very early in the morning and passed away tragically in a car accident. And so Tyler composed this piece and put in the program notes for the work that all proceeds and profits from the sale of this arrangement go directly to that gentleman's family in perpetuity, forever. And so it's a very, very special, poignant arrangement of Amazing Grace with a really special kind of background and meaning. So we hope you enjoy Tyler Arcari's arrangement of Amazing Grace. just really quickly, the gentleman who that piece was written for and in honor of was named Sean Miller, and he was a French horn player, which is why you hear French horn solo in that piece. So it's extra meaningful. Our next piece that we're going to be doing is a giant medley of tunes called Festival of American Spirituals. So for those of you who do not know, my day job is teaching just down the street at Auburn Junior High School. I'm the band director there. I also help out with the bands at Auburn High as well. But I also teach music appreciation to kids who are placed into that class. And we spent a good deal of time at the beginning of this semester, especially talking about the idea of spirituals. We think of the word spiritual as an adjective, like saying somebody is a spiritual person, or that is a spiritual quote. But in the later part of the 19th century, just before and after the Civil War, spirituals were things. It's a noun. And they were songs that were crafted and sung, especially by African American enslaved people who found themselves, especially down here in the American South, being kind of assimilated into culture down here and being made to go to church. And they would sing these songs that were based on melodies that they were brought up with from West Africa and the Caribbean, but with biblical texts. And many times, these spirituals actually had secret meanings. It's one of the things that I enjoy teaching my students about, is that these spirituals were used to pass messages and instructions along things like the Underground Railroad, as abolitionists were coming down into the South to try to help people to escape to the North, to the free states. And so when you hear songs like Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, and things like that, yes, obviously that's very biblical language, but it's also talking about rescue efforts, a chariot coming down into the South to help save people. And so this is a collection of those tunes, and so we hope you enjoy Jerry Nowak's arrangement of a Festival of American Spirituals. All right, that was a lot of fun. I was expecting some people to start clapping there for a second, but I think everybody's at their best behavior this evening, so we're not sure if this is allowed. So our next tune is a piece by Tim Waters called Fortress Variations, and it once again references the hymn that we played in our very first piece this evening, which is A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. But this is kind of a rhapsodic kind of treatment of this, so it's kind of like we take the melody of A Mighty Fortress and we kind of put it in a blender for a little bit. And so throughout the piece, you will hear little echoes and snippets of this hymn melody. So we hope you enjoy this piece by Tim Waters, Fortress Variations. I told them that I was going to talk between all of these pieces because we are mere mortals up here on this stage. And that's a lot of notes. That's a lot of fun piece. A really great piece there, that Fortress Variations. Our next tune is a definite change of pace. This is a tune that I was exposed to for the first time a few years ago, composed by a composer who has been based in a couple of different places. He's been in California, he's been in New York. But Rossano Galanti actually, unlike a lot of composers who write for wind band and concert band, he actually didn't grow up in band or as a band director or anything like that. He actually got to start writing music for the movies and television. And then later on in his life, found this wonderful medium and decided to start writing music for it. And we're very grateful for that because he's brought all of that cinematic energy in his music for concert band. And so this has been this is a great piece. It doesn't have a particular story behind it, but it has a very powerful message, obviously with the name Redemption. And so it's just a really great contemplative piece and really gorgeous and sounds like it should be in a movie for sure. But I heard it for the first time a few years ago at an honor band for some really advanced high school students, and I was like, wow, this piece. And so we're excited to get to perform it for you this evening. We hope you enjoy Rossano Galanti's Redemption. We could just go home after that one, huh? Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm just kidding. We have more music, as you can see on your program, but that's the one that pulls at my heartstrings the most for sure. So thank you for that, and thank you to this band for that. It's beautiful. Our next tune, I grew up being educated by a generation of band directors and conductors and music educators who said things like, if you're going to have a band concert, you have to play a march. I don't necessarily think that that's like an in-stone rule. However, people like to hear marches. And one of the reasons for that is that marches are deeply connected to the heritage of this type of ensemble. So if you know anything about concert bands, you'll know that our tradition of American concert band is deeply rooted in military music. And so it's hard for a lot of people to believe, especially my young students, that there was a point in history where military march music was the most popular type of music in the United States. It was especially right after the Civil War and at the turn of the century, because people were super hungry for music that made us feel unified as a country. So they wanted patriotic music. And so marches were all the rage. And among some of the first recordings that are put on wax cylinders and as they get into records are military marches, because people wanted to listen to that stuff. And there were concert bands that would play in the gazebo in the town square all through New England and the Midwest. And people would gather around to hear these marches being performed. We're going to go in a slightly different direction with this. We are not going to play a John Philip Sousa march or a Carl King march. We are going to play a piece called Symphonic March on an English hymn tune. So it is the idea, Claude T. Smith took a hymn melody, specifically the hymn, This Is My Father's World. Very, very popular down here in the southern United States. Also popular as the inspiration for the main theme of Lord of the Rings, oddly enough, is a quote of This Is My Father's World. And it kind of treats it as a march, as we're marching forward with this hymn melody in mind. So, you're going to get all of the notes that you bargained for this evening for this march. We hope you enjoy Symphonic March on an English hymn tune. Alrighty. Was that marchy enough for everyone? Everybody ready to go? Yeah, absolutely. That was great. One of the fun things is realizing that all sorts of different cultures have marches. And American marches are always a little bit on the quick side because we got places to be. And British marches always seem to be a little slower because they can take the time. They're just, they're not as big of a hurry. But they are lots of different traditions. So that was a lot of fun to put together. Our next tune is kind of a cornerstone work in the wind band kind of realm. It was written by a composer named Howard Hanson, who actually was very famous for writing orchestral music and chamber music and piano music. And he was the dean of the School of Music at the Eastman Conservatory of Music in Rochester, New York, a very famous and storied collegiate program there. He was the dean of the entire school. And he was the dean of the school during the 1950s when a band director by the name of Frederick Fennell at the Eastman School decided to come up with the idea of a wind ensemble. Now, for those of you who have maybe heard that term and you don't know how that's different from, say, a concert band, up until that point in American history in the 1900s, you had really, really huge collegiate marching bands and collegiate concert bands. So, for instance, in the 1940s, the University of Michigan's concert band had 110 people in it on the stage. Very huge groups, 32 clarinets in the band, really massive. Frederick Fennell at the Eastman School in the 50s wondered what would happen if you pared the instrumentation down almost to one person playing each part to make it very nimble and quick and agile. And he presented this idea to tons of composers, both here in the United States and around the world, saying, here's this unique ensemble that we have that's kind of interchangeable and we can pull instruments in and out, but it's very nimble and quick and agile. Write music for it. And from that, we get some of the most beautiful works for band that have ever been written. But Howard Hanson was there for all of this, supporting Frederick Fennell in those efforts. In 1957, he composed this piece, Chorale and Alleluia, for that band and for some honor bands in the area and around the country. And it obviously has two sections. It has a chorale, beautiful, smooth, lyrical sounds, and an Alleluia, which is more of a dance-like or a upbeat kind of section. And these kind of weave in and out of each other. So we hope you enjoy this kind of cornerstone of band literature, Chorale and Alleluia. All right. That was a lot of fun. A little bit of explanation about this last piece, but before we do that, I just have a couple of thank yous to make before we wrap things up for this evening. First of all, we want to thank you for being here to support this wonderful ensemble. We want to thank, obviously, Lakeview Baptist Church for their hospitality and having us here. This is we love playing in community centers and churches and places around town, but we have kind of a unique problem, which is there's not a whole lot of places that can hold us anymore. We have a lot of really great church partners in the community that would love for us to come play concerts, but the fact is we've outgrown a lot of their stages, and we're right on the edge of this one. And we've seen some really terrific growth in this group just over the last couple of years, and that's because we're having a great time. We're having a great time. I always find it interesting, and I mention this at almost all of our concerts, that the most common question I get about the band, people will email me and say, is there an audition to get into the group? And the answer is yes. Can you get to rehearsal? Can you make it there? We take our music very seriously. We try to play it well, but we try not to take ourselves too seriously. Because the purpose of this group is the fellowship. The purpose of this group is taking a bunch of people who come from a lot of different walks of life, a lot of different occupations, as you can see in your program, and we get together once a week and we make beautiful music. And it's a ton of fun. If you are somebody who has a clarinet gathering dust in your attic, this band is for you. Yeah. We didn't even rehearse that. That was fantastic. But there are so many people that are sitting in this band right now because they were brave enough to dust off that horn that they haven't played since high school, and to make sure that the air will still go through it, and they jump in head first, and it does not have to be scary, okay? We're not going to make anybody play a solo on their first night in the band. And so we would encourage you, because we know there's lots of people in our community that maybe played when they were in school, maybe played when they were in college, and haven't touched it since. It is never too late. And the whole reason that this group exists is because of the vision of a very, very important person, and that is our founder, Miss Mary Slayton. Miss Mary, would you stand up for a second, Miss Mary? Miss Mary is a pillar in our community, a very, very well-respected and beloved piano teacher and musician in our community, and she had a vision for what this group could be. And we always try to tell the beginning of the story, which is at the first rehearsal, there was 7 people. And we have a whole lot more than that now, and that is because of the support of the community. And we have several other groups like this in the community that we want to encourage you to support as well. We have the Auburn Community Orchestra, which meets in town, and we also have the East Alabama Civic Chorale, which is our kind of sister ensemble, which is a choir that's also sponsored by our wonderful organizational sponsor, the East Alabama Arts Association, based in Opelika. And so they're the ones who take care of us and make sure that we have the things that we need. But we couldn't be here without Miss Mary, and we're so grateful that she's here tonight to hear another concert. And hopefully she's enjoying what she's hearing. I'm sure she'll send me an email later if she hears anything that she needs to. She'll talk to me about it later. She's listening very closely. So. But we definitely want to thank the faculty and the staff and the facilities at Auburn Junior High School, where we rehearse, for letting us use their percussion equipment and letting us hang out every Monday evening. And I left the best part out. If you come to our rehearsals, at the end of every rehearsal, we have cookies. That's the best part. Because we are old and we have to replenish our calories after we're done doing all of this. So we get sugar in at the end of every rehearsal. But really, we have that so that we can have fellowship time, because I am very firmly of the belief that bands that know each other better play better music together. And that's one, yeah, absolutely. And so these folks are, it's a highlight of my week every week is getting to work with these folks. And so speaking of the band, you'll notice that we do not charge an admission fee for coming to our concerts. We want to keep it that way. However, we have costs that are associated with doing these kinds of things, whether it's renting venues to perform in or buying new music and things like that. If you feel the urge or the need to support us in any way, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. The music stands in the middle of the room that have the programs on them have Easter baskets next to them. We are not going to pass a plate around, folks. But if you are so inclined that you can give a little bit, and I assure you Miss Mary will be along to pick up those baskets right after the concert. But in the 21st century, a lot of times the easiest way to give is electronically. And so you'll see on your program that there is a QR code that you can scan with your phone, and it will take you directly to the East Alabama Arts Association website, and you can make a donation and earmark it for the community band. You can say, I want this to go to the band. And all that we use that for is to pay for renting of facilities to do concerts like this, and to pay for new music for the band, and to pay for U-Haul trucks to get our percussion equipment around and things like that. So we would encourage you, if you feel just to give a little bit, we would appreciate it so that we can continue doing great concerts like this. Speaking of great concerts, we are anticipating our last concert of this academic year to be on another holiday. So we're here on St. Patrick's Day. We're all wearing our little touch of green. And our next concert is also really easy to remember. Our next concert is on Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May. And we are looking at the probable location for that is going to be at the Southside Center for the Arts in Opelika, which is the home base office for the East Alabama Arts Association. But we're actually not going to have the concert inside that building. We're going to have it on the front lawn of that building. So we're going to encourage people to bring their picnic blankets and their lawn chairs and to bring dinner right across the street from the public library there in Opelika. And we'll have kind of more of a Pops kind of concert on the 5th of May of this year. So we're going to be turning around and learning some new music here pretty quick. Again, I just want to thank you, and the biggest group of people I want to thank is this wonderful group of musicians right here. Can you guys thank these wonderful musicians? I'll ask them, was that a long enough break? Are we good? Okay, cool. We have our wits about us for this last one. So this last piece is a work by composer David Holsinger. David Holsinger for many years was the band director at Liberty University, and was very famous for writing band works based on biblical stories. And his favorite type of stories to tell musically were stories that would often get skipped over when you were planning your Sunday school lesson. And so this piece is called Abram's Pursuit. It comes from a story in the 14th chapter of Genesis, and it's essentially a rescue mission. So Abram, before he becomes Abraham, his nephew Lot is kidnapped by a group of warring kings in that area, and they're taken as a part of a land grab, and his nephew is kidnapped. And Abram decides he's going to execute a rescue mission where he gathers a little over 300 of his soldiers, or his people that work for him, and they're going to try to, in the evening, secretly go in and save these people that have been captured, including his nephew. And it's kind of an amazing story because it's a very uneven battle. It's like 300 versus 5 kings worth of armies. And so David Holsinger tells this story musically with this really intense piece, Abram's Pursuit, our final piece for the evening. We hope you enjoy. Thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you next time. Please make sure to drive safe this evening. Thank you so much.